Hi everyone, Janelle here. I'm a functional nutritionist, doctor of natural medicine, and creator of the Empowered Midlife Method. This is my podcast where we talk about midlife wellness in the mountains. I am on a mission to help women not only feel better and age their best, but also to help women understand their unique body, to take ownership in their health, to awaken their hormone wisdom, and step into their power around growing older.
My guest today is my friend Lynette Talbot. Lynette is a certified personal trainer and a physical therapist assistant. Lynette has been a competitive athlete since high school. She has worked as a mountain guide in the Sierra Nevada as well as a physical therapist assistant at the Tahoe Forest Hospital in Truckee. Lynette specializes in sports performance, orthopedic injuries, and in endurance event training. In today's episode, we are breaking down the different types of workouts that midlife women need to understand if they want to build endurance or if they want to feel strong, support their bones, and work with their hormones as they shift through perimenopause and into menopause. We define cardio zones, the difference between HIIT and sprint workouts. We talk about strength, and Lynette shares a simple and effective weekly plan to bring it all together. I learned a ton, and I know you will too.
Welcome everybody, and welcome Lynette. I am super happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
So first of all, you and I met here in Tahoe through a mutual friend. And since then, we've been on a few mountain adventures together, and we've also done some line dancing together. So had some laughs for sure. But today we're going to dig into a topic that I hope will really clarify things for people about polarizing our movement in midlife. And that's so we not only, stay fit and all the things, but it's so that we stay strong and can keep playing in the mountains and do all the things that we love. On top of when we do it smart, we get to keep our libido and sleep well and balance mood and all the things that are really important to me. So I'm really happy to have you here and clarify a few of these different movement types for us. So we're going to jump in.
All right.
All right. So most listeners have heard probably by now that doing endless zone 3 cardio in perimenopause and menopause don't check all the boxes anymore, and it doesn't work the same way it used to. Polarizing movement is where it's at, and we're here to chat about sprint intervals, maybe HIIT, maybe VO2 max, but let's start by defining intensity because it's such a huge part of polarizing our movements. So, can you jump in with defining intensity for us?
Yes. So the gold standard within exercise physiology of defining your zones would be to do some type of test in a lab. That would look like a VO2 max test in which you are basically putting the body under a stress with a machine that you're looking at the amount of oxygen capacity this body is working with, okay? And that's sort of why the term VO2 max workouts comes, is because when you get one of these tests, you're like, okay, here's my number. A lot of them are genetically predisposed. So you have a number, and then that's going to be your maximum. Okay. Your heart rate is also aligned with this. And so people are like, oh, I'll have heart rate zones. And you will get heart rate zones when you get a VO2 max test. Another type of test would be a lactate production test, so blood markers. So as your body starts to consume that oxygen, it also has a byproduct of CO2, and then you're going to have this other byproduct of lactate being produced. You have an LT1 and an LT2. You have an aerobic threshold. You have an anaerobic threshold. These are the things that really define intensity. It's a cardiovascular fitness and a cardiometabolic fitness. I like to go to, here in Tahoe, I like to go down to UC Davis. I like to go every year. I think it's really interesting to have benchmarks. And through time, I've had VO2 tests done in my 30s and then in my 40s, and I'm going to get them done in my 50s. It will decline, and that's not a bad thing. It's still giving a snapshot for what is important, imperative to you now. What I think a lot of your users might like, because we don't really care exactly what your VO2 max number is. We really care about these heart rates to help define the intensity. But there's what's called a metabolic efficiency test. Those tests can help, and I can link those. It can really give you your caloric distribution at a certain heart rate. So I know how many carbohydrates I'm burning and how many fats I am at what heart rate. This can be done if you're a runner, it can be on a treadmill, it could be on a bicycle. I think that gives you a little bit more information because zone two actually ends up becoming a hard to define, even if you know your maximums, your heart rate max, your VO2 max, that actually still leaves a pretty big gray area down at the lower zones.
Mhm.
So to your point of let's vary, let's diversify these workouts so we're not hanging out. And I had an exercise physiologist one time tell me, zone three is no man's zone. It's where everyone eats breakfast in Truckee. They're just like, they're like ramped up, but you're not improving performance and you're not improving an aerobic base.
And you're
But
messing up your hormones in midlife.
you love it. It's what makes people, if you look at research for sedentary individuals, it's what the sedentary individual starts to say, this is work, this is hard, I am working. When you get to zone five, and if you're going to use a seven zone, let's just use as the five for today. So we know that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That when you get to five, you're not going to hang out there long. It is 30 seconds, which actually we can sort of take that. And then now that we know where we get these identities of intensity, then we can nitty gritty define hit versus sit.
Okay, but hold on. Let's wait. Let's pause there for a second
Yeah.
because I love everything you've spoken into. I think it's really helpful for people. I think we need to just pause and back it up even just like a little bit more before we go on because not everyone's going to understand even what all of these things are that we spoke of. I just
Oh,
want to
yeah,
double click on
sure.
some really important things that I think that you said to summarize it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you defined some limitations with how much we can work, like how well our body makes energy at different levels. We have a oxygen threshold, like how much oxygen we are able to use, and that matters because that's how much energy we can make
Yeah.
efficiently. Lactate, so how much lactate is building, how are we able to use that lactate into making it energy? That's a limitation, how well we process and use lactate. And then
Energy, or maybe even defined as energy sources.
yeah, and then I was going to say carbs. So
Right.
how
Carbs.
well are we using glucose to burn energy so that we can have great output? So we like have those three thresholds: lactate, oxygen, and our carbs utilization. Is that kind of good summary?
Yeah. And I think we could even help people with, I think, a cardiorespiratory fitness. So
Yeah,
how
I
much am
think
I breathing? How much is like your blood in your lungs? Very
yeah,
simple, right? And then, and these are going to be part of, for those taking notes, these will be like your benefits of why we want to do this stuff. So you're going to
exactly.
improve your cardiorespiratory fitness. You're going to help with insulin sensitivity and glucose control. You are going to help your blood pressure and vascular function. If you think about it, even in terms of plumbing and pipes, if you're going to put a bunch of water through the pipes, that's going to help the resistance of having pressure in the pipes, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and then body composition and lipid profiles, that goes to where everyone will be basically saying your benefits of doing this workouts are helping. And I think we will get into those nuances, but I think this is where a lot of buzzwords come up. And then that's why people think they should be doing something, but that they're like, but is it actually happening? If you don't define it, you don't know.
Hmm.
And then mitochondrial function,
Hmm.
like you are going to increase your mitochondria with zone five versus zone one. And then from a physical therapy, like sports medicine viewpoint, I really like this kind of work for neuromuscular benefits so that you're working on speed and agility and ballistics. Like going for a walk will never improve your joint surfaces, your tendons, your ligaments for doing burpees, for example.
Hmm. Right. So many benefits. Okay. And then just general intensity means how hard you're working. Even
Yeah,
let's just make it more simple. It's like, what's your perceived effort?
yeah.
Right. And so you said 5 zones for now. For today's talk, we'll keep it to that. That's plenty. So, zone one, we're walking slowly. We're doing something, we're exerting effort, right? But it's slow and we can chit chat and all the things. And then two, we're still talking, but we might be jogging or something like that. I know when you get those tests, you really specify this, but we're just
Yes.
generally speaking here for people. Zone three, that's the hour-long run, right? You could still talk a
Depending
little.
on the person,
Yeah,
but
I'm
yes.
just, we're examples here.
Yeah.
You're like jogging with your friends. It's harder work, but you can say a few words here and there, right? You can
Yeah.
piece together thoughts. And then four, what's four? How would you generally?
It's like fun sort of call it race pace.
Right.
Let's say you and I, Janelle, are going to go run to the end of the block, or maybe like let's go around the block,
Yeah.
and I'm going to try and beat you. That's zone four.
Okay. Great.
And then zone five really truly is less than 30 seconds. It's you
Hmm.
and me on the track, 200 meters,
Hard as you can go.
hard as you can go, fast as you can go. I always laugh when people say they're doing zone five for 4 minutes. I'm like, no, not by definition. It's
Right.
30 seconds or less.
Right. I think
Yeah.
that's like a generalized way to about it, but I do think that clarity is helpful for people
Yeah.
just to keep in mind. And they all have their benefits, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah. And I will also say that when you're starting to look at the population basis of whatever you're looking at, right? So for you, like postmenopausal, perimenopausal women, but a lot of research is done on the sedentary inactive individuals. So a sedentary inactive individuals, zone four might be that walk around the block. So as a person gets fitter, they also get up. Like the exercise physiologist I work with actually it was like for a fit person, zone one is greater than 85% of their aerobic threshold. That's
Yeah.
high. That
Yes.
means they are like, that's why them going around the block will never be a good recovery workout for them.
Right.
So that's where context comes really important with defining intensity is because are we taking an athlete and getting them to perform, or are we taking an individual who has body comp and weight loss goals?
Yeah. I love this because it speaks into how I practice, which is everything needs to be individualized. There's no general, you got to adapt it to your body and where you're at. But Lynette, I saw that happen personally when I trained with uphill athlete however many years ago to do a big 50-mile race. And
Mhm.
I really was methodical about my VO2 max and my sprints and all of that. I couldn't believe how easy it became to do certain things. Like I was
Mhm.
exerting the same amount, but I could run faster and farther. And it really blew my mind. It was the first time I was really impressed by the diversifying movement.
Yeah, great.
It was really cool. Okay, so can we jump into maybe sprint intervals? Does that work?
Yeah, it's defined as 110%, even though some might say 105 to 110% of supra maximal effort. So
What the hell
it
does
is,
that mean?
yeah,
Put that in
so
layman's terms.
less than 30 seconds, you need to recover fully. So this is an all out exercise with typically 5 to 6 repetitions and 2 to 3 minutes of recovery. So I love to use the runners because they're easy for some people to think about, which is the 200 dash. This is if we have a track, it is the one straight. Right? No, that's 100, 200. One straight, one curve.
There you go.
For a swimmer, it's a 50-yard swim.
Mhm.
For the gym person, this is a deadlift followed by getting on the rower.
Mm.
This is a clean and jerk. This is box jumps. This is burpees. Um,
This is hard as hell,
this is hard.
but
You
short.
it's short. Now, what's really interesting, I have actually found with most menopausal women and people who aren't as, like you said, like not trained, their heart rate, if they're rating their monitor, it's so fast that you can't be looking at your watch and see, oh, I got there. Can't do it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
your heart rate has a lag. It takes, you're going to feel the heart rate higher than the actual interval workout itself.
Like if you're trying to do that, you're not going hard enough.
Right. And if you're watching it, you're not going to hit it. You got to do the reps. With a lot of this, it's you're going to do the meters. And then you try and beat your meters within the time frame. Like that's probably one of the best ways I've seen it done, is with that type of measurement. So 200-meter dash, it's
Mm-hmm.
I got this other one that I wanted to go to like show. It's 5 sets of 30 seconds on, 2 to 3 minutes off. And it is with rowing. You would
Mm-hmm.
row as hard as you can because then it's upper
Mm-hmm.
body and lower body.
Mm-hmm.
Ergometers would be like this. The assault bike, when you're using your butt, your legs and your arms,
Mm-hmm.
and you do as many calories and you stop it at 30 seconds. See, let's say you went to 10 calories. Now, each interval, you need to beat 10. Try and beat 10. It is why this work does so well with peer pressure is because the short burst lends itself to competition and why people like they don't like doing this by themselves.
Mm.
And this is also why this kind of work is high risk for injury. So
Mm.
if you are not warmed up, you do not actually the exercise physiologist also is like sometimes I use little bursts of sits for a warm up. Or if like let's say you're doing a 5 or 10 minute interval, you can use little 30 seconds or fartlek type work to try and get your heart rate up. But
Mm.
if this is going to be like, and if you're going to do it weighted, let's say like with the assault bike or resistance or barbell work, you absolutely need to be warmed up. And
Yeah.
then the other thing is that people don't recover very well from this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
They they cannot turn around the next day and be like, now I'm going to do my 20-mile long run.
Mm.
They need a recovery day. So
Mm-hmm.
what happens is why in this terms of diversifying is that people don't diversify is because the heart is hard and you need to support it with recovery and timing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, the other one that I was going to share was 4 rounds, and it's 30 seconds burpees, 30 seconds split jumps, 30-second shuttles, which is basically running back and forth, but with cutting, and then rest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the
So
other thing
combining
always
those.
keeping your eye out when people say it's a sprint, but then they never give you rest, it's not a sprint.
Right.
Then
So
you're
yeah,
doing muscular endurance.
right, which we can talk about in a second. But
Yeah.
so you're saying what defines it is you are working so hard, you cannot keep this going for longer than about 30 seconds. And then you have to take a rest in between, and we have to have repeats to make this workout effective. Now, Lynette, you're going to laugh, but I love this workout. I do
Yeah.
one a week, and I love doing it alone, which
Hmm.
I think is funny because you were like,
Yeah.
oh, it's hard. No one likes doing it alone. I love doing it alone. Here's why. Well, here's why I love it. It's short. It's like
Uh-huh.
arguably my shortest workout of the week.
Yes, it
I do
should be.
like a, 10, 15, like a 15-minute warm up
Yeah.
and then the short intervals and then a short cool down. So it hurts, but it's so short. I find it really mentally easier to get through. And since I tore my meniscus, I've been doing it in the pool with 50-yard sprints
Yeah.
and then just like breaststroke in between or just like something super chill where I can come down. But then you'll tell me if this is right or wrong, but last week I used my uphill ski as my sprint. I was by myself, so I could do it. And I would just like run up the hill for like 30 seconds until I was going to barf. And then I would just go like super slow. I'm sure I looked like a total lunatic. But then I would go super slow until my heart rate got down and I didn't time it or anything, but it was like a couple minutes. And then I would do it again. And then I went the rest just like kind of mellow pace. It wasn't perfect,
Yeah,
but I like that you can kind of use the real world it for this workout. Like you can
I
bring
think
it
the
to what
Nordic
you do.
skiers absolutely, they use it as a moving interval. They do a lot. I would say it has to do with your skill base.
Yeah.
So let's say you're new at something, and running is easy because it's like, well, if you're not running, you're walking.
Hmm.
Whereas with skiing, it's a little harder.
Hmm.
Um, because there's technique involved.
Hmm.
So I have found, depending on the thing, actually Nordic skiing for me, because I'm not as technically good, I couldn't do in the flats because I'm like too uncoordinated, but I could do it up a hill.
Yeah, that
And
makes
then
sense.
I'm like, yep, I will die going up the hill, and then I can come down the hill. For a lot of trail runners, runner workouts, I do like to use for in the intensity part, it's due to elevation gain, right? It's up a
Hmm.
straight hill.
Hmm. Hmm.
But let's that track workout is also there for now let's take out all the other variables
Hmm.
and you can still use the track.
Hmm. And then you mentioned the rowing machine. That's an awesome one.
Rowing machine, what's an I mean swimming,
Burpees.
yeah, body weight burpees. Yeah, those are probably, and then I don't do as much. Now back to the risk factor. To take someone and let's have them, oh yeah, I want to share with you the barbell one.
Mm,
Um, So 10 did lifts at 60%, followed immediately by a sprint on a rowing machine or a salt bike or treadmill for the remainder of the minute.
mm,
So be sure to make sure the machine does not have a delay to start but does count meters of distance. So you're keeping yourself honest. So if you do that deadlift and immediately go on, you know you're getting the same meters in that defined amount. Um, Whenever we add weight, we're going to add risk. A
mm,
lot of people get really scared when they're underneath the barbell, when they're underneath something. So I think that, or like, let's say, let's use the meniscus and you have lack of quad control. I'm not saying you do, but let's just say. And then I have you go sprint. That's probably the likeliest part. And then I go have you sprint up a hill. That's the most likely like outcome they for you to strain your hamstring, your quad, your Achilles, your hip, your back. Like that's why a lot of people also are like, oh, last time I did that, or they showed up to this peer involved group dynamic and they're like, oh, I can't hold myself back. I'm giving it all.
mhm,
And then they tear something.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I
mhm.
think that's why it's funny that you say that it's working for you, which is great because the risks are greater within those peer dynamics.
Mm, mhm. And I guess it like how motivated are people to push themselves alone or with a group? It just depends what motivates you,
Yeah.
I guess, internally to push yourself. So again, on all aspects of this, what you're saying is you need to adapt it to suit your body.
Yeah. And then hopefully you also are adapting this to whatever your goals are. So you need to lean something towards, let's say you are the endurance athlete. Okay. Are a lot of sits really in the gym gonna have crossover effect? I've read a lot of exercise physiology says no.
What the hell is a sit, Lynette?
A sprint interval train.
Oh. I was picturing sitting. I'm glad I clarified that for
Yeah.
anyone else. I'm like, what the
So
hell are you talking about?
some of these gym workouts, the burpees, the box jumps,
Okay.
those have less crossover to your aerobic capacity for your goal. Okay.
Mm-hmm, hmm.
But let's say you came to me and you're like, I want greater lean body mass, decreased body fat mass, and I want to max my squat.
Hmm.
Okay. Like let's just use a little bit more of the bodybuilder example, then these have a little bit more, like you can, then you should gear them a little bit more towards that. But if you come in and say, I'm doing my 50K, then we need to have you do a little bit more of the hit, which is what we should define next.
Hmm. Great, perfect. That's a good segue. So yeah, and I'll also say along with those goals, I know it's not your jam, but you know it's my jam, is these also impact your hormones.
Yes.
And how we balance our hormones and how we feel in midlife as everything shifts. So all these things are a really cool opportunity to personalize. So I love everything that you're speaking into. Thank you. Okay, so let's do it then. Hit. What the heck? Define it for us.
High intensity
What is it?
interval training. But now instead of, so I'm just going to remind everyone, the last one was 110%. This is 80 to 95% effort. 45 seconds to 4 minutes. Usually a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. And then once again, you can make it in your, I would start someone off, and even within that 4 minutes, it's 2 minutes on, followed by 2 minutes off at the beginning, because you might not be able to go 85 to 90% effort for 4 minutes at the beginning. You're like, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
I fail, which
Mm-hmm.
actually arguably is a really good determiner. It's really good to push yourself, see where you fail, and that will help you determine. It's like going into the gym and be like, 50 pounds wasn't that hard. Maybe I probably could do 60. Okay, next time I can do 65. It's the same type of progressioning. It use these hard and then time and then find a failure, and then you'll know your sort with, if you're not going to use pace or heart rate,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
duration is your other element.
Yeah, so let me just double click on what you just said. If people are confused by this, trying things will bring clarity. So don't be scared to experiment, to be safe, of course, do it right for your body, but to experiment and find those boundaries. And then you
Yeah.
can either push them up or go back a little bit. But the more you do these things, the more you're going to get better at it. Like it's going to be more clear where you can just incorporate it super easily into your life. Would you agree?
Yeah. And from that sports med background that I was saying, the reason why we like these, have always liked these so much, is that neuromuscular. Neuromuscular is literally how your brain perceives how the levers are moving.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've never done a burpee before and you go lay on the ground and come back up, that's as simple as it is. Get to the ground and come back up, jump or not jump, then you are teaching your brain how to get there. And all you're doing in simple matters is getting up and off the ground.
Mm-hmm. Does that also incorporate, I don't know, you tell me, does that incorporate this idea that most of the time our boundaries are mental and not actually physical? Like it's our brain that says, oh, that's my limit,
Mhm.
instead of,
And maybe
yeah.
it was like the last time you got injured was getting up and off the ground. Maybe you picked up
Mm-hmm.
a box from the
Mm-hmm.
ground and you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
no, 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 I can't do that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't do that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do it slowly
Mm-hmm.
for a defined amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
and then challenge yourself to do it quicker in the
Mm-hmm.
same time.
Mm-hmm.
Then do the same amount of times and now change the time duration. It
Mm-hmm.
really comes down to exercise principle, which is frequency, intensity, time, and type.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how we define exercise, and how exercise routines are then defined in progressions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so backing it up one more time
Yeah,
before we keep
that's where
going, a big picture of what we're talking about, the difference. So the sprint intervals are 30 seconds, as hard as you can go, and you're going to vomit if you go past 30 seconds. And
Mhm.
so they're shorter, and you have
Mhm.
to rest a little bit longer in between.
Correct.
Now we're talking about HIT, high intensity interval training, and that you said was 80 to 95% of your capacity. So you can go for 2 minutes at this harder rate. So
Up
it's
to four
not
minutes.
as hard, up to 4 minutes at this harder rate. And then you don't need quite as much time to rest ratio wise. It can be more equal to how long. If you did it for 2 minutes, you can rest for 2 minutes. If you did it for 4 minutes, you can rest for 4 minutes.
Yep.
And I think that clarity, I don't know, I just like being able to think at what the difference is, big picture, before we go deeper into the rabbit holes of the complexities of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Oh, yeah. So I was gonna use one of my workouts as an example of like, okay, well, what does this look like?
Hmm.
And you know, I usually use a round as my warm up. You do the movements, And then you're like, okay, well, how long did this take me? And sometimes I'm like, well, do I want it to be more sit? Do I want it to be more hit? Or do I want this to be 20 minutes, like a functional threshold hard thing? And within every discipline, you've probably seen this in some ways. Cyclists are very well defined and known. Like they're like, oh, it's a VO2. I know I'm going to do 30 seconds. I'm going to do 4 minutes. I'm going to do it 4 times. And they just repeat it every week.
Hmm.
I think the gym ones are a little harder. Like, I don't know how long it takes me to do 10 burpees, 20 step ups, and 20 like split jumps. I'm using a lot of plyometrics, like just body weight plyometrics if you
Yeah.
don't have a lot of equipment. I think that's probably one of the other simpler ones, but definitely harder on the joints.
Mm.
Joints are always like you want to slowly add and progress the amount that you're jumping. I mean, I have had patients, clients that come to me and they're like, I want to do this sit work, but I can't run.
Hmm.
Or I want to do split jumps, but my knee hurts. What else
Hmm.
do I got?
Hmm.
It's hard. You got to get creative
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
figuring out what equipment you have. That's why I love the ropes, the really heavy ropes that people
Mm.
use.
Hmm.
That's why I love cycling for those who cannot run. Running is by far the easiest, like
Hmm.
equipment wise
Hmm.
and time, and like all you need is a track
Hmm. Hmm.
or defined space. And treadmills are the only reason I say a track versus a treadmill is because of that delayed response
Hmm.
and getting up the speed.
Hmm.
It affects it.
Yeah, it is hard. Or the pool.
Or
Okay.
the pool, it's a
Yeah.
50 yard. And as I was a water polo and swimmer. So I always think of when I think of these two, I'm like, oh, the 50 yard is the sprint, and the 200 and the
Hmm.
500 are the hit.
Yeah, that's a great, great concrete example.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Anything else in hit, or can we move on?
Your recovery needed, I think, is probably the last one. You don't need to, your recovery can be more moderate. So a little
Mm.
bit more like what you were doing. Let's move while we do these.
Hmm.
If you're truly doing sit, I think you really just need to like lie on the floor.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Like you really your recovery much needs to be much more methodical. Maybe you sit, maybe you just sit there and like zone out. Whereas if you're in moderate intensity, a little bit more moderate, you can be a little bit more moderate with that recovery.
Okay, that makes me feel good because actually, sometimes I do just stand there after the sprint in the pool. And
Yeah,
I kind of am like, no, you should be able to just breaststroke now and go super slow. Sometimes I'm like,
no.
no, man, I am toast. I need to just stand here in the shallow end for a second.
Yeah, I think I
Okay,
think
I'm gonna
that
embrace that.
recovery is like sort of that like indicator to you.
Hmm.
Can you repeat this again and again?
Hmm.
Or do you really need, if you're at 110%,
Hmm.
you need to recover
Okay, good.
before
Yeah,
just
yeah.
repeating.
Or recover actually like slower than yeah, okay, good. I'm gonna embrace that then. I'm gonna go with that. Okay, so can we move on then to VO2
Yes.
max?
Yeah. This is an interesting one. I think it's like zone two. Everyone just throws out the term. Um, VO2 max is going to be a workout that improves your capacity. So it's defined as if your VO2 max is estimated for maximum work rate achieved. So you once again need to be above the intensity in order to push your intensity up.
Okay.
So hit and sits are VO2 max
Hmm.
improving.
Hmm. So I went to a longevity summit 2 years ago, and at the time, the most talked about thing was VO2 max. And these are not athletes. This was at a longevity summit
Yeah.
because it was like it correlated to the best longevity. And so, there's more research needed, but that indicator of good VO2 max was really correlated to improved longevity, which I thought was really cool. But we need to be able to push our boundaries in order to improve our VO2 max. We do that by doing the sit and hit that you talked about.
Mhm.
What else do you want to speak into anything else about VO2 max? Like why we would want to improve it other
I
than
mean,
longevity?
without going into too much of a nuanced whole. Um, a lot of VO2 max also gets defined in, let's say, males 18 to 25 years old. What
Shocking.
happens actually in childhood and will greatly affect. So it's actually one of my questions when I ask people, like, what'd you do in high school? Oh, you were track, you weightlifted, you played baseball. Actually, in America, this is really interesting because baseball and football are more power and rest. It's less like running continuously for 2 hours, like soccer.
Hmm.
Um, on average, Americans have a lower VO2 max than Europeans, but it does to do with the fact that they have more running and swimming and swimming with the highest amount of VO2 max. Once you have it defined, so you learn your VO2 max is basically how, like, we went back to the lungs and the blood, right? How much oxygen are we getting to that blood? Then you can change it, but a lot gets determined by the time you are an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, training absolutely can affect it. By how much it gets affected definitely has more to do with where you came from and your genetics. Then, let's say I take two sedentary people. The biggest thing that's going to help them is concerted exercise, is
Hmm.
aerobic work.
Hmm. Hmm.
Was that too much of a tangent?
No, 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 not at all. That was really helpful. Thanks for
So in terms
clarifying.
of longevity, the other cool, like, why, and actually I read a paper recently talking about this. They're like, it's hard because we know VO2 max goes down as we age, right? So everyone's like, well, how do we prevent it from going down? And they're like, that's not the question to be asking. The question to be asking is why, and isn't it such a cool thing that it goes down by age? Because we know we're not gonna reverse that number. And instead, the idea that it's correlated with longevity is just because this is something that you can improve. You can't improve your genetics. You can't improve what you were given to you, but you can work out more and do diversified workouts, and that will help your longevity.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a great point. Okay, so we are out of time, but this is so good. I honestly could just keep talking to you about this. First of all, could you, in your expertise, give a generalized week movement routine for midlife women if they wanted to polarize their movements? I mean, I know this
Yeah,
is needs to be individualized, of course,
right.
but generally speaking, do you have a guideline that you like to use for women?
Yeah. So I say 2 to 3 times a week of strength resistance training. And one of that is a full body circuit where you're doing everything, upper body, lower body, core, in whatever form you want. Then one of those is something with some type of plyometrics and lower body emphasis that is single leg. I like it to have, it just takes longer. 3 sets of 10 squats is faster than 3 sets of 10 single leg squats, 10 each side.
Mm-hmm.
People don't do them. So
Yeah.
I would love to
Yeah.
see people doing that for
Yeah.
all the other benefits, the
Mm-hmm.
balance, the proprioception,
Mm-hmm.
the ability. You need to get your chassis strong so that you can handle the hit sits,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one would be core, glutes, and stabilizers, whatever you need to work on. For you, Janelle, it's your meniscus, right? Maybe it's a hip, like ankle knee alignment. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
need to work on your weakness and you need to put effort into it every week. And it does not have to take long. It could be, that's actually one of the days I like to do the sits with, is it's 15 to 20 minutes of core, glutes, and stabilizers, whatever you need to be working on. And then you end it with 15 minutes of sit.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you haven't got yourself prepared before you tried hard.
Mm-hmm. Right. 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 It was a win-win.
And then, so that's 3 times a week. Then my other 3 times, so I, with a 7 day, the other off days from that would be, I definitely always have a rest day. And then 2 days of cardiovascular exercise that would be of your aligned with your goals, whatever your sport, whatever it makes you happy. gets you outside or doesn't get you, like whatever it is that you can do year round and consistently for those other 2 days. That would be like my main, like for menopausal women. Uh, and the core glutes and stabilizers, I just want to make a note of that to being also could be a Pilates class.
Mm-hmm.
The American College of Sports Medicine brought out another article recently that Pilates and non-weight bearing exercise is not enough to prevent osteoporosis.
Mm-hmm.
Pilates is wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
but if you only do Pilates and you don't overload,
Mm-hmm.
you are not going to help that bone density.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
probably are, and they didn't speak to that in the article, but also the other hormonal based
Mm-hmm.
effects. You're not going to get them as much.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah, really good clarification. Okay, thank you. That was awesome. I think that gives people a great uh, idea of where to start from and how to adapt that to them. So, one more question. Do you think women need to do like personalized, or do you think they could just do group classes, or do you have an opinion on that?
Oh, I think it comes down to the goals. I
Hmm.
think it's what someone needs as intrinsic motivators or
Hmm.
extrinsic
Hmm.
motivators.
Hmm.
I think in our little town of Truckee, I think there's a big barrier here for going into the gym. I think
Hmm.
people don't want to be inside. I think the mental health benefits of going outside and being in the sunshine and doing the fun things always outweighs for those to get in the gym and lift heavy or do this hard work or do something that's consistently.
Hmm.
So I think for whatever your barrier is, I
Hmm.
think that you need to counteract that. And maybe it's with group exercise, maybe it's by yourself.
Hmm.
Look honestly at your week.
Hmm.
And are you getting those things in? And if
Hmm.
you're not getting those things in, find a solution.
Hmm.
And that could look like any of those things that you mentioned.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think having a plan for all things, people hate it, and I just can't say enough about having a plan. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
having a movement plan for the week, having a food plan for the week, even if it's not perfect, you can adapt. But having a
Yeah.
plan, I think, really is a huge needle mover for a lot of people. So, yeah, that was a great point. Okay, so what would you want everyone to know about diversifying movement or any of this? Like, what would you want to scream from a mountaintop, Lynette? Or what do you scream from a mountaintop?
Varied and diversified workouts need to be completed consistently.
Mm,
I think that workouts that are repeatable have a large value in comparison over time and also learning about yourself.
mm,
So you're going to learn, does you need more recovery around your HIIT workout? Do you need to time and plan it because you aren't going to be able to do your long run that week? Or that you are just like floored, or you're like at that night eating cereal and ice cream because you're like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. Like I get people that are like, the reason they don't put themselves outside their box is because they don't like managing it, because the box that they create is what they do consistently. So I would scream to people, get into the gym, learn something new.
mm,
Don't let imposter syndrome keep you from pushing your boundaries so that you can learn these limits, these outer limits. And a test, a VO2 or a metabolic efficiency test, I think is very affordable when we think about like preventative care. It's like $150 for this
mm,
test.
mhm,
It is, I mean, what people pay for new services or whatever. I learned more in that hour and a half with an exercise physiologist to learn about my heart rate zones and to learn where I can put my workouts and where I can be efficient with graphs that are specific to me. I think that has a lot of value that I think that people undervalue generally, and why I will yell it from the mountaintop.
Awesome. I think that's really helpful. I'm going to do it. You sold me. So, consistency, make it happen, go for it, try things. I think those are really helpful messages for people. So, where can people find you, Miss Lynette, if they're interested in your work and working with you?
Yeah. They can find me at billygoatswift.com. It's my training and coaching business. I do have a lean towards mountain climbing as my main coaching, but I coach triathletes and ultra runners and menopausal women and grandmothers that want to just be able to pick up their grandchildren and go on hikes with their 40-year-old children. So
Love it.
I work with everybody, and I like to promote strength training and using and writing progression plans so
Mm.
that people feel like they know what to do week in, week out, and they can see those benefits that, like you saw, when you put some concerted effort into each exercise and each workout.
I think that's awesome. And then once you do that, you learn so much and it just broadens how much you can do yourself. So working with someone really is so helpful, I think. So do you work online and in person or
Just online.
just online? Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, great. So anyone can find you. Lynette,
Yeah.
thank you so much for your brilliance. Thank you for speaking into all of these super important topics for midlife women. And I'm doing my metabolic test. Thank you.
Yay. Thanks, Janelle.
Bye, Lynette.
Bye.
Since recording this with Lynette, I have personally clarified my sit versus hit workouts, and it has really helped. For my pool sprints, I now do 50 yards with a 2 minute rest, and I push so hard that I have to rest for those 2 minutes. So, thank you, Lynette, for the tips, and I hope you all learned something also. Since recording this podcast episode with Lynette, I have personally clarified my sit versus hit workouts, and this has really helped me, especially for my pool sprints. I now do 50 yards with a full 2 minute rest, and I can push harder because I have that whole time to really rest and recover. So, thank you, Lynette, for the tips, and I hope you all learned something.